That was fast.
It was so fast.
Hola, people.
Hello.
All right, y'all. Okay. So tonight we're going to be talking about everything, really. So again, if there's anything that you guys want to talk about, feel free. Utilize the chat. Let's have fun. Let's talk. But we do want to talk about intent is still bullshit. What that means. We're going to talk about. Hola, bitches. Hey. We're going to talk about the moon in Spellwork, the moon in magic, and how, its cycle is important and why, each day the moon shifts, why it's not the same. And then, we're going to talk about, backing your shit up. Um, as well as if we have time, we will end it with talking about spirits in Spellwork. But we also will welcome y'all to join in the discussion, share your thoughts, and if you want to talk about anything specific, my computer's over here, so yeah, utilize the chat and comment, and just we'll talk. So let's start with intent is bullshit. Maybe we should take the page from Miss Literalism cricket song and define intent.
And I happen to have the Merriam-Webster definition right here. Intent is the state of mind with which an act is done. It is also a usually clearly formulated or planned intention. So the key words to me here are it is an act. It is a plan of action. And that is what I think is the biggest problem with the way people are talking about intent now. Intent is not thoughts. It's not wishing. It is a plan of action. So when people say in the magic community that intent is everything, I would rate that a mostly true if you have the correct definition. Because whenever you are about to perform a spell, you need to plan out that spell. You need to figure out what you want to achieve with that spell. Most people aren't just, casting and throwing energy about for no reason. There's always a reason. So you have a reason and you have a plan of action to, formulate and channel and gather that energy and send it out with a specific job to do. So to me, that is the biggest problem. You have a lot of people saying, well, intention is everything as long as you are thinking those thoughts. And I hate to tell you, but you can plop your ass on the floor and say, I intend to be a millionaire in 2 days and think it all you want, but that's not going to do anything.
Right.
Just you're going to have a sore ass from sitting there for 2 days waiting to be a millionaire. It's not the way intention works, and to me that is the biggest problem. You cannot have intent without action. It's like I was telling Michael earlier, if you are charged with criminal intent, you had bad thoughts that were illegal or you were wishing illegal things on someone, is because you had a plan of action to commit a crime and you got caught. So that is intent. So to me, that's the issue. It's a lot of misunderstanding of what the word means, of how it applies to your spell work. And so in a way, a better phrase, I think, is intent is the beginning.
Right, I like that.
It's everything.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why it's so important for all of us, because we're all part of different Facebook groups, different non-Facebook groups. We interact at different circles, gatherings, and whatnot. And this is going to be like a common theme going forward. Really, is people are so scared to interact, so scared of receiving a response that is not in alignment with their own. People are scared of feedback. And so we don't ask questions, or we choose to allow people to say things that are not necessarily correct. And so we see that a lot when people say intention is everything. And most of us, a lot of us know better that it's not just intention is everything. Intention is the beginning. I like that. And that's so true. And so we just let people say that. And like I said on the Deviant Witchery Live feed earlier, we need to start speaking up and having conversation and sharing, okay, intention is not everything. It is the beginning. It is an action. It's something that you utilize to follow through. You don't have to be cunty when expressing yourself. You can state your opinion and state it well and share your reasoning behind it. And that's another thing, is you need to back it up. You need to share why you're stating what you're stating, because people won't comprehend why if you just say, no, that's wrong. So be sure to realize that intention is not everything. It is, the foundation. Intent is the foundation in which our work, builds upon. So that's very important to work with and to share with other people. Yes. So realize that, again, that is your first stage, your first step. The first action is intent, and then you follow through, you build upon that, and you create.
Right. Exactly. Because if you don't have action steps, if you don't perform an action, you're not doing anything. And as much as visualizing is a spellcasting, it isn't the same thing as intent. Intent is actually having a plan. Visualizing, I can't say that word tonight, is part of the spell. It is something that you need to have a good practice of. It's something that helps power your spell, and I would say almost in a small way, but it's still it's not the same as intent. And the thing is, people think so much and focus so much on intent, at least what I've seen from other people having these conversations, that they forget about their correspondences. And correspondences are so important, whenever you're casting a spell. And working with energy and, having, creating the power to make your magic, channeling that power. All of those things are extremely important, and they are important steps to plan out, which again is what intent is. So it is important. You really can't, without a beginning, you can't jump into a spell in the middle. Without a beginning, you have no spell, you have no anything. Everything has a beginning. So while it's very important, it is really important to understand that there are certain things it is and isn't, and you need action steps to actually have good magic.
Exactly.
Successful spellwork.
Absolutely. And Solaria says, the way I see it is we practice witchcraft, which means we make things happen. Nothing happen without an active plan of attack, or at least not how you want or need it. And exactly, that's important. Somewhere down the line, I don't know how it got misconstrued. I don't know how it got this fucked up, but it did. And so we need to just take that understanding back and put that in intention as everything. It's not everything. We need to keep expressing that and sharing why, because just like what was it, a couple days ago or yesterday, something, someone on a live feed I did was saying something about intention, and the way they expressed it as intention was everything. But when we kind of discuss it a little more, it turns out they're kind of saying the same thing that I was saying, but they were using, honestly, the wrong terminology. And so that's how things get misunderstood, and people latch onto that, and then they keep sharing it, and then boom, there you have it.
Right. And it's also, in my opinion, I was looking through some of my older books, some of my beginner that I still have, And they don't really go into much detail or really express good spell structure. You know, they basically focus on, well, you should call in the elements, you need to call in deity, blah, blah, blah. And honestly, to me, that's a mistake to express something like that to new witches, because half of them don't know deity. The other half have never communicated with elements. So just to call them in, you're not going to get a response. They're going to be, who are you? You know, we don't know you. You know, and if you do get a response, it's going to be a weak one. So, and there's not any real explanation. It's just like, do this, 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 and this, and boom. You know, it's not, this is why you do this, or this is why this is needed. You know, and some do and some don't. But like, I spent a lot of, he's really good at telling you what to do, not so great on the explanation part, in my opinion. You know, he's great at describing things. I still love and use his Encyclopedia of Herbs, even though I've added about a million things in the side, in the margins, as details that I don't agree with or something I wanted to change. But still, you know, there's just not a lot of talk about spell structure.
Right.
And where everything gets really confused.
Yeah, and Faye says, for me, the intent is the what you want to do, and the work around it and following is the how you'll reach that goal. Witchcraft is more complex than just intent, and then Rebel Child, intention is simply the seed that starts a process that will allow the spell to fully bloom. Where the fuck are y'all? Like, honestly, because that, you know, that is, you know, yes. Y'all know what you're talking about, because, and not, we just need more people, and that's the thing. I'm all over the place, sorry, but that's the thing, is like, we know, you know what you're talking about, we kind of know what we're talking about sometimes, and so if we don't interact and we don't share and we don't have conversations with more than just our circle, other people don't get blessed by us. You know what I'm saying? Just
right.
So
that's the thing. People communicating in their same circles, and that's why this information is misinformation is constantly spread in the same way, because they're just regurgitating the same shit to each other all the time, and nobody knows any different necessarily. You know, ignorance is bliss, but it's also, you know, makes for poor spell work if you don't, you know, do your research and expand and discuss things, even with people that you don't agree with.
Right, discussion. Right. Well, and, you know, Solaria, it says to create a parallel intent is walking. It'll get you places, but slowly. Correspondences, herb knowledge, stones, etc. build you a vehicle to get you further, faster, and more safely. And that's true. It's like, the more we, and, you know, earlier someone asked, you know, what we do to get back to new witches, or what we do to inspire new witches. This is it. You know, the conversations that we have. And it's true, you know, everything, herbs, all of that we utilize in Spellwork, they're not just there to be there. They're not there to be present. They're there because they have power, they have influence, and we utilize them, we co-create with them, we intermix their energies and their powers, and we use that to form something that we want to put out into the world, and we want to see made manifest in our own reality. And so they're not just things, they're beings, they are spiritual essences in which we work with. And so that's important to see. You can't intend anything like that. You know, you have to work with, you have to build that relationship, you have to take it a step further.
Right, exactly. It's like, what did you say? You can't intend for a sage smudge stick to be a candle, and you can't.
I know, right?
It would be really hard to even make a plan of action to make it into a candle. I guess you could just pour wax over it and stick a wick in it, but it wouldn't be a good candle. So, you know, you need to have a plan of action that is going to actually produce results, which is why it's so important, like Michael said, to to find out about herbs and elements and, you know, astrology and moon phases and signs the moon's in. We're going to be talking about that soon here in a minute anyway.
Yes.
You know, and days of the week and what they represent and the planetary hours. You know, you don't have to use every single one.
Yeah.
You don't have to use crystals, herbs, you know, days of the week, moon phase, blah. You don't have to use all of that. But it doesn't hurt to keep these things in mind whenever you're about to cast a spell, when you're going to charge your crystals, when you're going to cleanse your tools, when, you know, all these things are important whenever you're going to charge any kind of magical item that you have created, a charm, a talisman, you know, a mojo bag, a poppet, all those things. You need to have, you know, herbal blends, oil blends. You need to have a good idea of what everything you're doing represents.
Right.
And to me, that is the point of intention. You are writing out, creating your plan of action. And you know all these things because of good intention work. You know?
So that's why it's very important for everyone to start practicing, to follow through, and I find, and if there's anything else that you guys want to say about intention work and anything like that, do so before we move on. But I find that you know, with intent, those who do say intention is everything, it's an excuse. It's an excuse to become and to remain lazy. And I'm just going to say it because that's just the way it is. That's what I've noticed. Most of the individuals that I've come across that say that and claim that, they sit down like I'm doing now, and they don't create. They don't do anything for themselves. They stay in the same issues. They stay in the same problems. They stay still stagnant because they're not doing shit. They think they are, and at the back of their head, at the back of their mind, it's like, oh, well, you know, it's so easy for me to create. I can just intend to do something. I'll get to it because it's so easy. I can do it. I'll get to it. But really, they never do. And so that's why it's important to understand that it's the starting point, it's the beginning, it's the foundation for what you will create. And so follow through.
Yes, exactly. You know, to me, it's really interesting. Here a while back, in one of the witch groups that Michael and I are in, someone had asked if you can, once you cast a spell, if you could stop it. And someone responded, well, attention is everything, and basically saying they could think it to stop. Not true. If you cast a spell and decide that, oops, I didn't do that right, or, you know, this was a mistake, you're going to have to cast a counter spell to stop it. Once energy is in motion, it stays in motion. So the only way you can stop that is by counteracting it with another spell. You know, there is no thinking it away. That just isn't how it works.
Right. I like that, actually, that topic, because, and that group I love because there's so many different people in that group and so many different perceptions and things that you just don't think about sometimes because you're just not at that stage. And then you see the question, you're like, oh, cool, that's good, and it makes you think again, just fun. But there was another individual who commented on that topic, and they said, well, can you close floodgates or something when it's flooded or whatever? Can you close it? And basically they're trying to say, no, you can't. It's hard and it's pretty much impossible. And that's not true. If you want to stop a spell, you can. It's just going to take work. And sometimes you can't, depending on what you had done and what you put in place. And if there's a time frame, sometimes you just can't. You can work to kind of like soften the blow. But anything is possible, and you can try. You can work at it. But yeah, that was a good topic. Let's see. I've kind of put off my practice, because if intent is just the helper and the mundane stuff is the meat and potatoes, I have been feeling like, what's the friggin' point? I don't think the mundane follow through is the matite. I can't.
The matite of potatoes.
The matite and potatoes. Oh shit. The meat and potatoes. I don't think that's what we're saying at all. The intent is the foundation, not necessarily the helper, but the motivator in a sense. It's where you find motivation. Your spiritual practice, your co-creation, your connection, your relationship with spirits, the way the herbs that you use, the oils that you use, everything that goes into your working, that would be the meat and potatoes, as well as your follow through from the mundane point. You can't just think that you can cast here and then not follow through in this world, because we live in a physical plane, we live on the mundane level. And so when we cast and we send out on an actual spiritual level, it's manifesting. But in order for us to like really bring it to us and bring it and make it manifest in the physical realm, we have to pull it here. And so we have to kind of vibrate at the same sort of energy. We have to mirror it. And so when we follow through with the physical action, we're creating that space for our craft to take root, so it returns to us and it manifests. But we have to follow through on some level in the mundane to show the spirit, to show it to come back.
Right. And I also think it depends on what they're considering mundane actions. Are you considering that casting the spell as mundane actions because you're doing it in the physical realm? Because if that is the case, then that is not how you cast a spell. Yes, you are working in the physical, but you should be in what I like to call the spell zone, which means you are both in the physical and in the ether, in the ethereal. You are in both places. You have crossed between worlds. You're between the horns. You are in both places. That is not mundane actions. Those are magical actions. And then what Michael's talking about, following through and acting in accordance afterwards in the physical, is important. Now, if you're going to bring something in your life, attract something new, a new energy, and more prosperity in your life, but to all these old things physically in your home, like you're a hoarder, it's going to be really challenging for that new energy to come in because there's no room for it. You literally have no room in your house for anything else, no room in your life for anything else. It doesn't have to be even physical things that you're collecting. Sometimes we collect emotional things. We collect emotional baggage that we don't want to let go of. And in order for this new energy to come into your life, you need to let go of some of that baggage. That is one of the ways you can act in accordance in the physical after you cast a spell. So it really depends on what you're thinking of as mundane.
Very true. Yeah, absolutely. You have to make space for what you want. And that kind of goes with intent again. If you solely intend making space, you're not following through, you're not doing shit. You have to make space for what you seek to create and what you seek to be housed. You can say, I want to change and I don't want my past experiences to dictate to me how I'm going to create new experiences. You can say that all you want. But until you start applying yourself, until you start, shedding yourself of old beliefs, old patterns, and you start bringing in new ones and implementing that, you won't get anywhere, because you say you want something, but your actions on all levels are not resonating.
Right, exactly. And, and one of my favorite examples of acting in accordance or not acting in accordance is someone casting a love spell and then staying home every Friday night.
Well, they might fall in love with something.
Right. You cannot meet new people, find someone else. You can't find someone else if you are staying at home and watching Netflix every Friday and Saturday, but you cast a love spell. You'll fall in love with Netflix. You'll in fact that actually could possibly happen. You become just absorbed into something like, TV. So if you're not, you have to act in accordance. If you want to find a new significant other, if you don't have anyone in your life and you want to attract love, you have to also look for it. You have to get out of the house. You have to mingle. You have to socialize. So yeah, it's all of it is a part of living a magical life, of being a witch.
And I like this, Talon expressed, for any spell to be successfully cast, there's always other factors that must come into play besides intent. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay, it's like continuing to say, you'll quit smoking tomorrow and then not following up with action. Yes, absolutely.
Never goes.
Yes, okay. And y'all, again, we're doing this for you. We're doing this to have fun too, but we're doing this as well for you. So if there's anything else you want to talk about, just feel free to bring it up in the chat and we will. But let's move on to the moon in magic. And I wanted to talk about this a bit because I saw, and I've seen this a lot, everywhere, where someone was asking about charging moon water or making moon water, and it was
full moon water.
Full moon water. Sorry, because it's important to know what moon phase and what they want. So they wanted full moon water. Okay, and I think it was the day after, and someone was saying, well, you can do it the day before, the day of, or the day after, and it's the same, really, but it's not the same because the moon it moves through its cycle super fast. So every day, the moon changes. And the energy, the influence of the moon is going to change.
Exactly. I mean, y'all, the moon completes a cycle in 28 to 29 days. Okay. We know this now. They might not have known that way back in the day because, they didn't have huge telescopes and things like that. So it could appear that the full moon lasted longer than what it did, but we know better now. And when we are presented with more knowledge that everyone accepts as a whole for the most part, that the full moon lasts from the point it rises to the point it sets on one day, then we need, as a magical community, to acknowledge that is a truth. So whenever you want to make full moon water, you need to make it that night. And if you don't make it that night, then you're going to have to change the title of what you're doing. It's no longer full moon water. It is now, waning moon water or waxing moon water. So that the moon goes through zodiac phases, and usually it stays in one zodiac phase for around 2 days, give or take a few hours. So that moves very fast as well. So you need to take that in account. Every full moon does not do, every new moon does not do the same thing because it's in a different zodiac phase. It's in a different month. And you need to also take in consideration that the full moon reflection of the sun. So if it's a full moon in what is this month, May, and the sun is, what is the sun in right now, Taurus?
What?
Is sun in Taurus? Is that what it is?
I can't hear you. You cut out.
Oh no! Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Is the sun in what zodiac phase is the sun in right now?
Oh fuck! I don't know.
Is it Taurus?
I don't know.
Anyway, you need to, whenever you're dealing with the full moon, it's a reflection of the sun. So you need to also keep in mind what zodiac phase the sun's in.
Yes.
What is it right now?
I think it's an Aries.
No, the sun's not.
The sun is in Aries from March 21st to April 19th. April. Oh no, sorry. It's in Taurus. You're right. Sorry, I don't know what. I'm
like, no,
y'all, I'm crazy. No, it's in Taurus. Oops. This is why it's good to recheck your facts, y'all.
right?
No,
Exactly.
it's so you're. It's true. The day after the full moon, it starts to wane. And so, as you expressed already, when the moon wanes, you're getting rid of that full moon energy. You know, fuck, I can't even think of what I'm trying to say. But yeah, you're getting rid of that full moon energy, so it's going to change. Like you're not going to have the same influence as the full moon would be, because when we wane, it decreases, it gets smaller. So if you're trying to use full moon essence and the moon's decreasing, it's not the same. So that's why, and like Melissa said, they might have utilized this back in the day when they didn't know any better, but now we do. And so the reason why we're saying this now is because it's going to give your workings that much more potency. It's going to be stronger because you're going to be doing it in the right way, especially when it's something specific as full moon water. You want to make sure to have the full moon charging your shit. Yeah, so that's why we express these things, because it's important, and you have more information, you utilize it. The day before, it's still not going to be the same. The day after, no. The week after, no, because it all changes.
Exactly. And get a good moon app. That really helps. What's the moon app that we use?
Deluxe Moon.
Huh?
Deluxe Moon.
Deluxe Moon. That is it. And I think, and it literally tells you the minute the moon will rise in your area, and when it sets, what zodiac sign it's in, if it's void, of course, if it, what phase it's in. It will tell you if it's full, and the very next day it will say it is waning. And it's a great app, but it's something that's important, because not only does the moon rise in your area, like it rises 3 hours, what is it, 3 hours earlier? No, later for me than it does for Michael. Or no, it's 2 hours. 2 hours later for me. Whatever, time zones are confusing. But anyway, but you see my point. It's different. Like, during the full moon, if I wanted to start at moonrise, I would have to start my spell before Michael would start his, if we were doing like the same spell and wanting to do it at the same time, same point of moon time, when the moon rose. So, yeah, it's important to know these things. It's not going to be the same for everybody around the world. Time zones make a difference. But yeah, it's really frustrating to see people. I've even seen people say, you could tap into the full moon energy 3 or 4 days later. No, you can't. If you have a crystal that is charged on the full moon, on the actual night of the full moon, you can drop that crystal into some water if you happen to miss, and create full moon water that way.
Right.
But don't set water outside 3 days after the full moon and expect it to do the same thing as full moon water would do if you set it outside the night of the actual full moon.
Right.
And that means you might have to tweak things, and that's okay. Tweak your spell.
Right. Well, there are huge differences between full and waning. So that's why we express, like we've already said, but you have to know. The more you know, the better informed you are, and the better you are at creating the change in your life. And these are things that we don't really consider, but we need to consider when things don't go our way. Like when we're casting and we're like, well, why didn't that work? I fucking charge. I'm trying to, bring something great and manifest something great and bring to me, but I charge it on waning moon. Waning meaning I'm vanishing, decreasing, getting away from me. That's why that could be a possibility as to why something didn't work. So the more we know, the better we are at creating for ourselves. And that's important. That's very
Right.
important. And so
Exactly.
that's
Right. Oh, and I just wanted to, just for an FYI, someone had posted that they use Llewellyn's almanac for for the moon phases as far as times and stuff like that. Just so y'all know, if you want to save money, the Farmer's Almanac has the exact same stuff in it as all the times of moon rise and moon set. It has when you should plant, why you should plant based on moon phases and zodiac phases of the moon.
right.
And they're 50 cents normally. I think the most I paid for one is $1.50. So you don't want to spend $17. It's a little cheaper. And like I said, at the beginning of the year, you can find them at the grocery store. I usually pick mine up in the aisle, where they have all the crappy the Inquirer and shit. You can usually find a Farmer's Almanac shoved in there at the beginning of the year. And no joke, they're like at the most $1.50. So just a little.
Right. Okay. So let's see. Let's say I need help with my mortgage refinance to keep out of foreclosure. Can I do more than one spell to for this to come out in my favor? Yeah, absolutely. You can do more than one spell, but I would start with one thing, and depending on everything you need to accomplish, you can definitely do one spell. But like I said on the live feed on Deviant Witchery, just make a list of everything that you need to have happen, and then go through that list. And if there's one thing that can basically, if that one thing happens and it takes care of everything else, cast for that. And you don't want to cast too many spells that are the same thing, because that's you not believing in what you can do.
Yes, but I will say there is actually some good uses that come out of repetition, because repetition can build up energy. So if you're looking at it from that point of view, like we say, if you find like old sigils from like traditional folk magic that have been around forever, the reason why they're so powerful is because of repetition, because so many people put energy into that same sigil over and over and over and over and over again.
Right. Well, that's different than, having the same thing over and over. That's other people doing it over and over within a time frame. But you're right. I do agree with that. But at the same time, it's like, if you're doing more than one thing, because you're scared that one thing's not going to work,
right,
then you shouldn't.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to say. If you cast the same exact spell repetitiously for the point of building energy, that to me is different. That is a good thing, and can be a good thing. Especially if it's a big thing. To me, repetitious, and like, let's say you're casting it on the same day of the week in the same way. It's the same thing to me as if you have a honey jar and you are putting candles on it repeatedly, like once a week. You're doing the same thing repeatedly for a purpose, to build that energy, to keep that flow going. So if you're doing the exact same spell, exact same time, like every week or every month, that to me can be good.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Doing like 50 different spells, to try to get something, that to me isn't good. It's like Michael said, give it some time, let it, see how it's going to play out. Spell work, magic is not always instantaneous. In fact, it's only instantaneous if you design it to be instantaneous. Fast cast spells, things like that. Those, and then you need elements to make it fast. So it really just depends on what you're doing. But like Michael said, I would try one thing. And me personally, I like to give it a cycle. I cast it on the new moon. I wait to the next new moon and see what happens,
Right.
because it could have an effect and push you more in the right direction. And if that didn't work, then I would change the flow of it a little bit.
Right.
Point it in a little bit of a better direction.
Right.
So.
Well, it's just something that you have to be aware of. Like you said, like if it was one spell that you're feeding and you're continuing to work with it and feeling that and feeding that, I totally get how that builds energy. And so it also depends on where you are at in your practice and how confident you are. Because if you're doing more than one spell and they're very different from one another, and you're putting your energy into one, but you're not putting all your energy into the other, you kind of like you water down your energy. So for that one spell to hit its target, it needs its full essence. It needs your full power. It needs your full devotion, your focus. And if you're kind of taking away from that, you might not have that. So it just depends on where you are at in your practice, how well you know what you can do, and seeing it through.
Right. And it doesn't hurt to experiment too. I mean, I can see like on the new moon or waxing moon. Yeah, that's when it gets bigger. I had to think for a minute. Casting a spell to attract, for a specific thing. And then during the waning moon, banishing the exact opposite.
Right. Right.
Actually, it's really good. It is good magic, because I believe that's a kind of law. I can't remember which one it is. Obviously, it's not the law of attraction, but I think it's the law of apathy or something like that. I can't remember. But basically, it's a law where you cast to repel. You take something that repels something else to accomplish what your goal is. So you cast to attract a specific thing, and then cast to repel what would be its exact opposite. So that's not a bad thing to do. You can experiment and play around, but like Michael said, make sure and let things cook, and make sure you have good records of how things manifest, how your spell manifests, how your magic, manifests in your life, if it works, if it doesn't work, why you think it worked, why you think it doesn't work. Keep the spells that work and use them more than once. Again, repetition isn't a bad thing if it works, especially if it works.
If you work it right, for sure.
So keep good records. That's why magical journals are a thing. That's why people have Book of Shadow, Noirs, and Book of Mirrors, and things like that, because you want to have a good record of what is actually and what isn't. I'm horrible at that personally. I won't even lie. About the only thing that I do, I remember the spells that work really well, but even then I wind up changing them up a little bit just because I have to pick and experiment and see.
Right.
But I'm trying to get better at it.
Yeah, so hopefully that was beneficial. Let's see. To help a love spell cast during I'm assuming during the waxing 2 full moon, would banishing your target whose feelings are already there, hesitations during the waning phase help that? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the perfect example. Like if you're casting a love spell and you have it going, it's cooking, you need to get shit out of the way. So when the waning moon hits, we know the waning moon's for decreasing. We know that it's for banishing, getting shit out of the way. And so, yeah, you could use the waning to get rid of that shit. And that kind of helps, your spell work to be made manifest maybe sooner and a little more potent, because you're clearing the way. Like, people who clear, it fills up with snow and you have to pave the way. It's like that. Your spell's like,
right.
Like my sound
exactly.
Out the way.
And Faye said, like, recharging the anti-poverty sigil on an abundance altar. Yes, I actually do that. So yes, that is a really good example of that. And someone said that this climax of the spell should culminate in the full moon. It doesn't have to. I mean, it can, but it doesn't necessarily have to.
If you're working, the only way I would see that, like, if you need the full moon's essence for that spell, then yes, it should. But if you don't need it, like if you wouldn't have something you're banishing, the climax would be the full moon.
Well, even then, even if it can correlate with the full moon, you can have it like climax on Sunday morning as the sun rises. You can start it at night. And in fact, that's a really interesting energy flow, because you start it at night in the dark, and you can have it culminate Sunday morning as the sun rises. Not only does that represent, rising up,
Right.
building up, it also shining a light on whatever situation, empowering it with the sun, with success, with inner child. There's so many correlations there. So it doesn't necessarily have to culminate at the full moon. The moon isn't the only celestial, or even, how would I say, it isn't the only point of culmination in our day. Noon is a good point of culmination, climax of our day. The rising sun can be a point of climax in a way. It's coming up. So
it would just depend on the working.
Yeah, it really does. The full moon doesn't have to be the climactic epicenter of your spell.
So if I follow what you're saying, I would attract abundance during the waxing moon or at the new moon, and banish poverty during the waning moon. You can attract abundance. You can attract abundance like that. Yes, you can work with each moon phase switch to bring something to you, and sometimes bringing something to you means getting rid of something. Yeah, waxing.
I mean, that is definitely one way for sure, and that is the way I enjoy using the anti-poverty sigil. Is using it during the waning moon, but you can also, it's like Michael was saying, sometimes you can by banning obstacles and road opening type spells, banishing anything that's in your way. And it still is an attraction spell. I hope that makes sense. You clear way for things.
Well, and just, basic, Witchcraft 101, waxing, growing, waning, decay, full moon, bam, new moon, new shit. So it just depends on how you want to work it. But yeah, you can definitely do that.
Yeah, you don't have to follow the moon phases. I think everybody casts when they need to, but it is important to, when you cast, to understand, like, if you're casting during the day, to look at the sun. Is it rising? Is it at full, noon?
Well, there's
is it set?
Sorry. Yeah.
And sorry, but anyway, make sure your correspondences align with your spell work, and they don't have to align perfectly. You can word and work and use items in your spell work to correspond with your correspondences. If that makes sense.
Yes. And also, like, it's not about yes, we cast when we need to, but it's not about the proper moon phase. It's about understanding the moon phase and utilizing it to your advantage. There's no proper moon phase for working. It's just the witch knowing how to utilize any phase of the moon, any day of the week, any time of the day to cast. We work with these correspondences, like you expressed, to give us more oomph, more power. They support us. They help us get shit done. And so there's no proper time. There's just the time for the witch. The witch acts, the witch casts. And so when we do, we know how to utilize everything to our benefit. That's kind of what we're, saying.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So if, for example, if you're casting for love and it's not Friday, but let's say it is Sunday, Sunday is about success and attraction. So instead of, focusing on, you would put towards, like, you might not want to include necessarily Aphrodite if you work with her when you cast on Sunday, but you can still work with the success and attraction correspondences for Sunday to cast for love. You can cast any, like Michael said, any day. So you just have to take in consideration what's happening at the time you want to cast and work it into your spell.
So
no way for it not to work if you think about it and plan for it.
Right. So Earth Mother says, I used to all the time, but now I don't wait for the moon cycle. I will do what needs to be done when it's needed. I use herbs, crystals, and fire mostly. Well, that's kind of what we just said. So it's not about, there's a moon cycle every day, and I get what you're saying, but I'm also saying, like, you don't have to follow the moon cycle. Okay, it's the full moon. You don't follow the full moon. That's cool. But knowing that it's the full moon and how it aligns with your work, the moon phase is going to influence our work no matter what, because it's a big energy.
Exactly.
You don't have to wait for any specific moon phase to cast. You work it to your advantage. So you take your herbs and your crystals and your fire, and you know whatever moon phase it's in, because it's the moon's in a phase. So you would take that understanding and cast.
Right, exactly. So like this last full moon was in Scorpio. If you were casting something like, or using fire energy, I'm going to say that it probably wouldn't work as well, because Scorpio is water, and water and fire are opposites. So unless you were casting to repel in some way, chances are that water energy that's coming from the biggest celestial being, and you're casting it, is going to dampen that effect of your fire energy. Instead, you can add water energy or even air energy to the spell you're using instead of using fire energy. That's all we're saying. You can still cast that day. You just might have to change a few things in order to help for it to be the most beneficial.
Right. Well, and then that's kind of like also important, to, even if you don't work with the moon phase, that's cool. But if for your records, if you figure out, okay, well, I'm not going to work with, it's the moon's waning right now, I'm not going to really pay attention to that, I'm going to cast my spell. But if you at least write down what phase the moon is in, and it's, let's say your spell isn't as strong as you thought it was, or it didn't produce the results that you wanted, or whatever, you would know. You can go back and look at the ingredients, look at how you felt, and maybe, okay, it's waning, I was actually trying to attract something. Those energies were combative. So you don't have to, but it's also good to just be aware of. Like, I don't always okay, I need to do this. This is the moon I need to do it in. I make it work for me. So it's always just good to be aware of what it is, just so you have the most that you can. But that's cool.
Yeah.
We all practice differently, but it's just having the best shot possible to create and bring something home, y'all. Okay. Let's see.
Yes.
Okay, something I can't figure out is why I feel so drained during a full moon. Ugh, that's me most times. Ugh.
To me, it's, I think that the full moon is going to affect everyone differently. I know that if you watch April's astrology and her astrology show, she talked about how this past full moon was, people couldn't sleep, they were restless, and yet very tired. And that has so been me these past few days. I haven't been able to sleep, but I'm extremely tired. Even though I feel like at night it's like full of energy, during the day I'm really drained. So it just depends. A lot of things you can look at the phase the moon's in, because it's going to have an effect no matter what.
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter, you know, if you work with it or what you this is gonna sound mean, and I don't mean it to sound mean, but it doesn't matter what your beliefs are, because the moon is still the moon and it influences us.
And that's just scientific.
Just like the sun is still, you know, just like the sun is still the sun, no matter what you believe, it's still going to influence you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's going to have an effect. So there's a lot of factors you can look into when it comes to why you feel drained during the full moon. Maybe you're not grounding enough. You know, maybe that energy is flowing upwards instead of downwards.
Right.
All kinds of things.
Well, you know, and like we said, each moon is different, and the energy it brings is different. The, you know, the zodiac sign it's in is different, and so whatever sign the moon is in, that might flag something up or activate something in your chart, and that could be a reason as to why you feel drained, just because you didn't feel drained before. Because I used to get really drained during the full moon. Like, I fucking hated it. Now, not so much. You know, it's not bad for me. It's not as bad as it was. So it's just, you know, it changes, and then you have to consider our life experiences, everything that we're going through, and then the moon entering our experience at that stage in our life. If there's a lot going on, if we have intense psychic experiences, the moon's activating that at that time. There's so many different things to factor in when we realize how the moon influences us.
Right. Exactly. Like, I'm an earth sign, and the moon is in Scorpio, which is a water sign, and earth and water make mud. So while mud will still flow and things like that, it flows sluggishly. So, but I'm also Scorpio rising, so it had a really weird effect on me, to where I was like up, I couldn't sleep, but I wasn't shedding necessarily. You know, I just I kind of felt like mud. So
Right. So Talon says, I found that working with planetary hours helps when the moon isn't right. That combined with various correspondences is very effective. Absolutely, yeah. But again, I'm just going to say the moon is always right, because you can yeah, the moon is always right, because you can work your spell around the moon. You can work it with that moon phase. But planetary hours are perfect.
They really are. I guess the better phrasing when the moon isn't ideal, because sometimes it's not necessarily ideal, but you can still work with it. You know, it might take some creative thinking, but you can still work with it. That's my thing, is the creative thinking aspect. Sometimes I have to get very creative with what I'm trying to accomplish when I'm thinking about days of the week and planetary hours and the moon phase and sun. So yeah. Yes.
Okay, so before we close, obviously we're not going to get to spirits and spellcraft, because wow, this took longer than I anticipated. But if there's anything y'all would like to talk about before we start wrapping it up, feel free to utilize the chat and comment and bring something up if there's anything that you want to talk about. Miss Melissa, as we wait, is there anything else that you want to share or express, or yada yada yada?
Not really. We kind of touched on backing your shit up with knowledge and information. I guess, kind of go through that. But yeah, make sure you know. I mean, that's what this whole program's pretty much been about anyway, is counteracting misinformation and knowing, know your shit. And knowing your shit doesn't just come from experience, and it doesn't just come from reading. And research. It comes from both. Equal parts of both, in my opinion. Maybe a little heavier on the experience sometimes. Because, you know, books are great. I love them. I have a ton of them. But not irritate me faster than when someone tries to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about because they read something different in a book. Ask them if they practiced it, and they say no. That's probably the quickest way to get my read up. so it's not just about reading and research, even though that is very important. It's also about practicing and experience what you've tried out. And you will find that, you know, you will enjoy a book, but you won't agree with everything. Like, I really enjoy the Goodly Spell book, but I was telling Michael today that when it was discussing energy, she said energy flows in a spiral, and that is not right. It's in as straight a line as possible. The least resistance. It will take the path of least resistance. It's why whenever lightning strikes a tree, it goes straight from the top to the bottom. It doesn't spiral around the tree. You know, the way you generate energy, though, is often done in circles. So misleading, but I still love the book. I just don't agree with that part. I know better than that part. You know, we know better because it's been proven that it does not flow in spirals.
Right.
So, yeah, you know, back your shit up, know your information, and don't be afraid to say, I don't know.
Right, right. Absolutely.
Be afraid to say that.
Yeah, and that's also something that's very passionate about, and I was expressing to Melissa the other day when we were trying to figure out what to talk about, is when you are going to have a conversation and talk about something that you experience, that's cool. But when it is something that, you know, is an experience for everyone, that we have factual information, we have spiritual information, we have books, we have research, we have knowledge, we have all these things that talk about these topics, and you know nothing of it, you only know your personal experience with something, that's dangerous in a sense when you're telling others or you're sharing with others, you're writing for others or whatever about these topics. And your terminology, you're using the same terminology or you're, you know, the same type of essence that they are, but you are coming across as you know what you're talking about. And you do, in a sense, you know your personal experience, but you don't really have any understanding of what history tells us, of what research tells us, of the many religions and the faiths and the spiritualities and all these other things tell us about these topics. So it's, again, like Melissa said, back your shit up. And when you're going to talk to someone or you're going to express something to someone, make sure you don't have just your personal experience to back it up with. You need to have a foundation. That's what we're all about, is a foundation of information, which is from books and research and discussion and so much more than just personal experience.
Yes, exactly. So it's, you know, it is a nice blend of the two.
Yeah. And
having one side or the other isn't good.
Right. You know, we need our personal experience. We need all of that. So it's just, you have to make sure to have both. It's important. And so I guess our last, and make sure you are careful on whom you share your stuff with. Not everyone takes it well. That's so true. I guess our last question before we close is, what is your favorite material to make puppets out of?
Ooh, I honestly just use whatever material I have on hand most of the time. To me, the material is as simple as what you put inside the puppet. So, and how you decorate the puppet and things like that. So to me, it's just really whatever's on hand. I've used felts, I've used old t-shirts, I've used scrap material. I've used those little fat squares you can buy at a lot of material shops for like 98 cents. They usually have plenty enough material to make a decent size poppet. So really, it's honestly just what's on hand. So, because to me, it's about what's on the inside.
And I'm going to be cunty and judgmental because I think at the same time I pay attention to what's on the outside as well. It really is what's on hand, but at the same time, depending on what I need it for, I pay attention to the outside material because sometimes I'll use dough. I'll make a dough poppet.
Oh, this is true. This is true. Yes.
You might use meat. You might use flesh. So
true. I wasn't even thinking along those lines. I was thinking more of sewing poppets together.
right. So like it just depends. It depends
Black
on what
poppets. Those are good.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you guys want us to talk about anything specific for our next live show, definitely comment. Let us know. We have the group, we have the page, we have our personal pages. Check us out, and stay in contact with us because we enjoy having you. We enjoy this process. We love talking. It's super fun. But yeah, do you have anything else to add before we say ciao?
I'm good. Thanks for joining the conversation, guys. We enjoyed having you.
Yes, we did. Until next time, y'all. Peace.